Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
This is you without Collaborator. Invisible, just another seagull. And this is you with Collaborator. Get noticed in the AI era.
Online visibility is not luck, it's a strategy. Combine SEO, digital PR, and content distribution to grow. Visit adz.com to learn more.
Good morning. So like Jack said, today I'm going to be talking about mixtapes. But also, like he said, it's not just because I spent my formative musical years in the 1990s making mixtapes. It's because I think they can actually teach us, or the process of making mixtapes can teach us some really useful stuff about writing. So because you all look a bit dead-eyed this morning, I'm going to have a quick show of hands. If you can, put your hand up if you've ever made a mixtape, and it has to be an actual cassette tape for somebody else. That's good, this talk's going to go all right. Right, you guys don't have to put your hands up again. Now, the rest of you, put your hand up if you've ever made a mix CD or a mini disc or any other kind of physical media for somebody else. Cool? Now, you guys can keep your hands down now. Finally, everybody else, have you ever made a playlist for anybody else? Right. Moving swiftly onwards, we're going to take a trip down memory lane to the 1990s. I want you to imagine we've got those wiggly lines going down the screen like you used to get on the telly. It was a time when cardigans were threadbare. Jungle was massive. And mixtapes were kind of magic, because that was how we used to share music. But every mixtape you made was a real labour of love, because they were such a faff. You had to go through all your records and CDs, pick out the songs you wanted, stack them on, you press play and record for each one. And that made every one really special. And now we've got streaming. And I'm not going to say streaming's not brilliant. I love the fact I can play any song I want, anytime I want. It's great. But the trouble with streaming is it funnels you into its generated playlists that are all tailored to what you like. It feeds you stuff that sounds exactly like the bands you already listen to. And then it generates more playlists based on those playlists. So you end up going down this perfect generated road for you, but you never discover anything new. You never get those weird curveballs from your mate with the funny haircut and the big brother in a band. So you're probably wondering what all this has got to do with SEO, because apparently this is an SEO conference. Well, like most of the talks this week, it all comes down to AI. Don't worry, I hate it. If we take it back a little bit, the content we consume has gone the same way as music. Back in the day when I was making mixtapes, we used to read newspapers and magazines. We'd read Melody Maker and The NME and Select. And every article you read had a real person behind it who cared about the music, who cared about what they were writing. They didn't necessarily like it, they might have hated it, but they cared. And then the internet came along, and it kind of democratized writing. Everybody could publish blogs and writing, and it was kind of brilliant. I mean, it was terrible, all the writing, but everybody could get involved. Until brands realized that they could make money out of this. And suddenly everything became monetized. And the speed and the volume of production of content just ballooned and became massive. And then AI came along. And that's taken it to the next level again. Apparently, there are 60,000 AI articles published every day. More than half the internet is made up of AI content. And everybody's using the same tools and the same apps to write their AI content. So everything becomes more bland and generic. And then the AI learns from the internet, which is mostly AI. So it gets even more bland and generic. And that's really important for a couple of reasons. Now, I've broken this talk down by mixtapes and sides. So we're going to start off with side one of the first tape, which is all about how writing is thinking. And it's not, as we've come to think of it, or a lot of people come to think of it, just a commodity that we need to dispense with as quickly and as efficiently as possible. The process of writing is as important, if not more important, than the finished piece. And it's a bit like when you make a mixtape, because when you make a mixtape, you listen to the music in a different way. You listen critically, you listen analytically, you really get under the skin of the songs. You listen to the lyrics and the riffs and how something was produced, and you get to know it because you need to do that to see how stuff's going to fit together. And it's the same when you write something. You really get into the thing that you are writing about, and you learn so much as you're writing. And that means your understanding of that thing evolves as you're going through the writing process. And just going to a ChatGPT or whatever it is and prompting it to give you an article, it loses all that. You lose that vital part of the process where you're thinking. You outsource your thinking to a machine. And I've seen Terminator 2. That doesn't end well. It might seem like that's fine at the bottom of the market when you're just churning out blogs like there's no tomorrow. But if you're at that level, how do you ever learn? How do you ever get better if you're just farming it all out to AI? And then the more valuable the writing is, the more important the thinking process becomes. Because as you work through that process and you learn about what you're writing about, you develop your own opinions. Google's very big on opinions. You develop your own unique perspectives. You pick up on the connections between things that nobody else has spotted. And when you write something, or certainly when I write something, often as not, the finished piece isn't at all what I had planned, because I've learned about what I'm writing about in the process. And I've actually learned what's correct and what's factual as well, another huge thing in Google, because that's exactly what Google and other search engines are prioritizing. So side 2 of this tape is all about experience. Now, a mixtape usually is about experience. It could be about an experience you shared with someone, like a gig or a festival you've been to together. It could be about an experience you want to share, like songs that you love, how they make you feel. It could be about an experience you're going to have, like you're going on a road trip together. But AI has no experience. It's never been down the front of a punk rock gig with 100 other people drenched in sweat with its fist in the air, screaming the lyrics back at the band. It's never been dancing in a field somewhere near Milton Keynes at 3 o'clock in the morning, carried along by a wave of euphoria and bass. It's never sat on the floor of its bedroom crying, listening to the same song over and over, because it's the only thing that really understands how it feels about the person it's just broken up with. And AI writing is exactly the same. It's never used your thing. It's never used your competitor's thing. It doesn't know the pain points, the problems that your clients are feeling. It's never picked up your thing and felt the quality of it. It just goes to its vast knowledge repository and it works out what words to put in what order. They're a bit like some other articles and vaguely related to the prompt you've given. There's no empathy, there's no feeling. And that means there's no human connection. Now, connection is something us copywriters love to talk about. But what does it actually mean? Why is it important for SEO and in general? Well, when you make a mixtape, it's not just about getting somebody to hear those songs. It's about getting them to feel something. And search isn't just about clicks, even more so now with AI mode and AI overviews. They're only the first step. You want people to do something. You want to buy something. You want them to sign up to something. You want to fall in love with your brand. And that's where the connection comes in. Because if people feel seen, if they feel a link to the brand that they're reading about, they're already halfway there. So building that connection, building that relationship is vital. Writing with AI just shows people that you know you should care, but you can't be asked. Now, there's probably some AI fans in the audience, and you're probably thinking, oh, you've just not learned to prompt it properly, or you're just not using the right model or the right app. I went to a talk yesterday which talked about 6,000 word prompts, which just blew my mind. And maybe there's a bit of truth there. If I put the time and effort in, yeah, maybe I could get out content that's a bit less rubbish, but I'd still be missing out on that thinking process. I'd still be letting my brain atrophy and rot because I'm not using it. I'd still probably get content that's just got wrong stuff in it because the AI doesn't know what's right, and neither do I, because I'm not gone through the writing process. and I'd still be contributing to that stinking cesspit of sludge that the internet has become. I'm not an AI fan, in case you hadn't guessed. So if you're not going to use AI, what should you do instead? I've got to say this, if you can do, I think you should hire a copywriter, because we're lovely and we're much better at writing than the robots. But we're also expensive, so we're not for everybody, or even just for everything that you need to write. So you can learn to write better and more efficiently yourself. And it turns out that the skills you learn writing, making mixtapes translate brilliantly to writing better content. So this is our second mixtape, which is all about writing. Side one is about writing to a real person. When you make a mixtape, most of the time it's for a specific purpose. It might be for a girl you like, or to impress your mate's brother who's in a band, or it might be for that road trip you're going on with your friends. So you tailor it to that person and what they like, but you also get in what you love and what you like to hear. And if you want to avoid the blandness of AI, you do the same thing when you write. You write like you're writing to a real person, which sounds really obvious, but just go on the internet, a lot of people get it really wrong. Because what they do is they'll write to a business, like a SaaS company that does fintech software, or they'll write to a persona, like a 45-year-old marketing manager living in Slough, driving an Audi on 45k. But that's not writing to a real person. That's writing to a generic concept. So the writing becomes generic. By not writing to a human, your writing becomes inhuman. So to get around this, what I like to do is I imagine that the person I'm writing to is sat there in front of me. If I've met them, this is pretty straightforward. 99% of the time, I haven't met them. So what I do is I create them in my head, an actual living, breathing person, not a real person, because they're imaginary. I sometimes say that. And what I like to do is I watch people. I listen to people all the time. I listen to the conversations people are having in coffee shops and in bars and on the train. How people talk to each other about real stuff. And I make notes on it. I build up this database in my head and in notebooks. I have a lot of notebooks about how real people communicate. And AI can't do that because it's not in the real world. And then, when I'm ready to write to them, I write them a letter. For you playlist people, it's like an email, only on paper. But it has to be a proper letter to that actual real person, not just a generic marketing letter. Sometimes I'll actually start with Dear Derek, or whatever I've decided to call them, and I'll finish with Yours sincerely. It is important to remember to delete those bits or people think you're a little bit odd. But the lovely thing about this, about writing it as a letter, is it makes you really think about the language you're using. It's a little bit more formal than if you just sat chatting to someone, but you're also not going to use the daft jargon and nonsense that you get so often on web pages. And while I'm writing, I always remember, always have in the back of my head, that people buy from people. So writing it like a letter, it gives your content a bit of a personality, some humanity. So it reads like it's written by a real person, for a real person. And then you're already starting to build that connection with the reader. Now, side two is all about flow. So what the good DJs do, like this guy, they make their sets flow. All the songs are perfectly blended together, so you'll know when one starts and one stops. But they read the room, so they know what tune to drop when to keep that flow, that wave going. Mixtapes, a lot more start to stop, a lot more detached because you're sat in your bedroom making it. But you still put a lot of thought and a lot of consideration into what song goes where, how they fit together, and how you build a mood or a story. So you want to do the same thing when you write. Arguably, the most important song on a mixtape is the first one. It's the hook that draws a listener in. So it needs to be an absolute banger. But it can't just be any banger. It has to be a banger that speaks to the person who's getting the tape, and it speaks to you. So maybe it's a song you already both love. Maybe it's your favourite band covering their favourite song. But there has to be a connection. And it's the same when you write. Start your article, your page, by talking about the reader, talking to the reader. Talk about their problems, their interests, their needs, and how your product or your thing or whatever it is going to help them. Tell them that this story they're about to read is all about them. There's nothing worse than a mixtape that's not balanced. Nobody wants to go from chilled out ambient jazz to hardcore grind in the space of one track. It's awkward and it's jarring. So make sure there's a thread that runs through your writing. Every section naturally follows on from the next one, and it builds on what the readers learn from reading your article. A mixtape is a bit like a story in musical form, so get that storiness, that narrative into your content as well. But on the flip side, people often don't listen to mixtapes from start to finish because rewinding tapes is a faff and it takes time. You mixtape people have probably had to rewind a C90 with a pencil, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. How we consume content online is actually similar. Now, I read up on this. I found it quite shocking because I don't do this. I read things from start to finish because I'm a nerd like that. But most people don't. They skip around. They might read your introduction and skip to the section they want, then jump to the end. So every section has to work on its own, as well as part of the whole. So if you're writing a sales page, make sure you're repeating your key messages and your calls to action, because otherwise people are probably going to miss them. Now, you wouldn't want to get a mixtape that didn't have a track list. There's nothing worse than hearing a new song, and not being able to find what it is, to be able to find more about that band, which in the 90s was a thing, not so much now. But when you write, that means you need to make it easy to navigate, using well-structured headings and internal links to actually give people the information they need as quickly and easily as possible. The new AI term is that you should use semantic chunking, which makes me want to hurl chunks a little bit. But actually, it just means writing paragraphs, which is pretty standard advice. Make sure you use paragraphs. Every paragraph has a point. And make it accessible as well. Make sure you're using alt text for your images. Make sure you're using high contrast colours and good, legible, easy to read fonts so everybody can read what you're writing. You don't want to be that mixtape that's got a track list in unintelligible spidery handwriting or smudgy pencil, so you've not got a clue what anything is. So you've done it. You've made the perfect mixtape. It's something that builds on the stuff you know they love with the songs that you think they should love as well. And the last track is the hardest, because if they do listen to it from start to finish, it's the one they're really going to remember. Arguably, although the first song might disagree, it's the most important song on the whole mixtape. So you need to make it awesome. It needs to be, it's the best. You save the best till last. It's the 10-minute epic with the massive soaring synth riffs and the heartfelt choruses. And it's got the guitar solo that feels like it's transcending the bounds of physical reality. So when you write something, don't just finish on a half-assed sum up of the paragraphs that have come before and a weak call to action that says, click here to find out more. Make it really count. Make them laugh. Make them cry. Make them really want to buy or do the thing that you're talking about. Make it epic. So here's my epic last track. AI is rubbish at writing, but you're not. You are awesome, and you're full of experience and empathy and knowledge that kicks the robots in the arse, even if you think you're not, especially if you think you're not. So get out there and write, because the world, the internet, needs your voice now more than it ever has done before. Thank you.
Wait, before you go, want to stay on track with where search is heading? Download Search Pulse by Reflect Digital today. It's game-changing.
You've got two blind spots, keyword rankings and LLM visibility. Now, most tools solve one, but AccuRanker solves both. See how at booth number 18.
Demand Sphere. Limitless visual insights from the SERPs. Unlimited dashboards and users. Easy to use and easy to scale your growth to new levels.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.